samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Samasta sukhino bhavantu.
Releasing the holding and the perineal diaphragm was the key to opening up the pelvis and opening up the negative field and restoring the integrity of the body's energy. And he might have even called polarity therapy perineal therapy. Hello, I'm a perineal therapist. So we are with the lesser of the evils as polarity therapists for sure. So we understand energetically how to release the trauma and the holding in the sympathetic nervous system. Let's move back a second here and talk. The body essentially, we are mammals, and as mammals, our nervous system has a mammalian nervous system. So when I look at that little lizard out there, I understand that we have the same nervous system. And so that lizard is living in terror of Grady the cat. That he never knows when Grady's going to appear from behind the bush, and if he isn't that fast in his reaction, he's cat food. Okay? And certainly as mammals, we've been in our nervous system, as mammals, we've been in the food chain since the beginning, whenever that was. So one of the things, so the body is set up, so there are two modes to the body's energy. There's what we call a parasympathetic, which is where the body's energy is drawn inward for nourishment and body building. So all of the energy moves from the periphery to the core to these organs here of the solar plexus for nourishing and building the body. And then there's the sympathetic, where all of the blood and energy move from the core into the periphery. If there's a threat, the nervous system is set up so every part of the body shuts down and all of the energy moves into the extremities to either fight or to flee. Okay? That's how that lizard is set up. So in that moment, when he perceives a threat, so every animal will freeze when it is open up its senses into what's called orientation to see, is there really a threat here? And then will respond by running or fighting it, running preferably, fleeing like that lizard darts out of there, or if he can't, perhaps even fight. And then if they perceive that there's no threat there, that deer just shakes it out of the nervous system and goes back to parasympathetic, their natural state. Now, we have that same nervous system. So the body has the two modes, the parasympathetic, that state that we have a big meal and we relax, we start to read a book and we go off to sleep, that wonderful sense of well-being. After you make love, there's just a sweet, sweet, deep release there, and again, parasympathetic. Now, there's a couple things to notice here, that the parasympathetic come out of the periphery of the nervous system. That the sacral nerves, S2, 3, and 4, and the cranial nerves resonate with the parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system radiates out of the thoracic and lumbar vertebrae. Now, Dr. Stone came to understand how we release the holding in the sympathetic nervous system, which, again, the sympathetic nervous system is associated with a conscious mind and with directed energy like fighting or fleeing. The sympathetic nervous system would also be associated with like fear-driven work and the stress that comes from fear-driven work, where again, the mind is obsessing on the job, there's a lot of pressure. This creates, again, that same kind of confused, contradictory, excessive mental and emotional impulses, which we call stress. Okay? So this is sympathetic too. Michelle?
Should I wait to ask
No,
later?
please.
Okay. I'm just wondering, since I work so intensely with the body, with the fight or flight, this is a deep concern because so many people get stuck.
Yeah.
And to me, as well, car accidents and so
Yeah.
forth, we experience that. So when working with the body on the physical, emotional, energetic levels, this is a good tool. What if somebody, I don't know, to ask them,
How do you
Can they-
actually
can
do
they
it?
stay-
Hands-on?
can they stay there locked in for a while? And I know bringing back, I know from unwinding myofascial release, for instance, if you're familiar, going back to the unwinding of the down back to the trauma. So this could reflect part of, our emotional. I mean, can we get worse then? Obviously, I think when people are stuck and it's really hard to get rid of your physical trauma.
Yes, people can continue to go downhill as the mind obsesses, as the contraction gets worse, and then as the immobility leads to physical symptoms and disease symptoms, of course. Now, the beauty of this work is Dr. Stone understood the energetics of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So first, we're going to be looking at the contacts that we're going to be using today to release the sympathetic nervous system and to work with the sympathetic nervous system. Yeah, it's all in the book. Yeah. We're going to be doing the core session, the ultrasonic core session in chapter 4, and these are charts that are in the book there. So we're in the session we're doing today, we're going to be making a contact by the tailbone, okay? We're going to be making a contact in which our line of force heads towards the ganglion of impair. A ganglion is a cluster of nerves, a concentration of nerves. And here, this is at the, and this ganglion of impair is right here between the sacrococcygeal juncture. It is right at the root chakra, where survival issues are. So we're going to be scattering the energy. This energy is meant to scatter. That our pelvis is meant to complete the cycle and scatter the energy. We're scattering the stuck energy at the root chakra, shame, survival, just root issues here. And then we're going to be continuing as we mobilize this to begin to mobilize this root of the sacrum. Now we understand that the reflexes to the sympathetic nervous system, the most powerful reflexes are these negative field reflexes, which are here at the ganglion of impair, which we will be releasing with a contact near the buttock, and then at the Achilles tendon. That they're very, very powerful. So we're going to be sliding our elbow down the spine very, very slowly as we hold the contact on the buttock by the ganglion of impair. And this is going to be releasing all of this holding in the sympathetic ganglion. And all of this armoring is just going to dissolve because, there's lots of elbow slides in body work because we have this contact at the ganglion of impair, and then this contact at the Achilles tendon, and another contact at the third eye. We're working with the underlying energetics, the underlying polarity to release and reestablish the integrity of the sympathetic nervous system. The other contacts that we're going to be doing today in our core session So here are our sympathetic polarity contacts here in figure 1. The occiput and the atlas are a positive field. The shoulders are also a positive field. The sympathetic ganglion, again, at each vertebrae, there's a foramen, there's a hole, and the nerves are coming out. There's a ganglion there, which are the way action moves out of the central nervous system into expression in the musculature and functioning of the body. So we're going to be releasing the holding in the sympathetic ganglion, supporting the fluidity of the spine. So we're creating the mobility again, we're reestablishing the mobility of the sacrum and the fluidity of the spine, and we're also going to be reestablishing the fluidity at the occiput as a negative field of the cranial sutures to enhance the fluidity there. So we're working with this whole system, and we're integrating it into the sympathetic reflex at the Achilles tendon and the sympathetic reflex at the third eye. So everyone see how hands-on and how accessible this is? Because once we understand Dr. Stone's principles, ganglion of impair, heels, third eye, we can actually release the confused and contradictory mental and emotional impulses from the sympathetic ganglion. Decades of trauma are released in a minute or two. Profound, profound. Now, one of the contacts you've been doing that embodies this dynamic and works with this dynamic, where you've been experiencing profound results, is the six-pointed star. Now, how many of you have, that's pretty familiar with you, have done the Rajasic work, and you've experienced this profound release in the shoulders, the positive field of the sympathetic nervous system, because you're working with these principles, because you're working with them. So you've begun to experience, and that release isn't just in the shoulders, it's in the whole underlying nervous system of the back. That there's a huge shift in the holding of stress and trauma. Oh, wrong way. So the other contact that we're going to be learning today, so we're going to be doing a sattvic energy balancing session. And in the middle of it, we're going to be adding these two contacts, essentially. Okay? We're going to be adding this thumbs at the ganglion of impair and elbows sliding along the sympathetic ganglion. And then once we've done that, we're going to be bringing the client into a fetal position, and we're going to be working with the parasympathetic nerves. Remember we said sympathetic was at the thoracic and lumbar, and the parasympathetic was up at the cervical and cranial nerves and down at the sacral nerves. So we're going to be making contacts between S2, 3, and 4 and the spinal accessory nerves here, the vagus nerve, that are moving down along the carotid arteries and then into the shoulders. And that these contacts will facilitate a parasympathetic state, profound relaxation, profound well-being. So in the work we're doing today, we're going to be doing sattvic contact, and we're going to be going down on the feet. And on the feet, we're going to be working the core reflexes. Reflexes to the head and neck on the toes. Reflexes to the spine on the medial arch of the feet. We're going to be working them fairly deeply on the edge of tamasic. Then we're going to be having the client, moving the client onto their belly, moving the client prone, and doing this contact from the ganglion of impair to the spine. And then we're going to be having the client lie on their left side in the fetal position while we do this parasympathetic innervation, and then we're going to do an AO release, a release of the occiput to release any tension. So we're mobilizing the sacrum, mobilizing the vertebrae, mobilizing the occiput, and we call this ultrasonic core. because we're giving this whole core system a chance to reestablish its harmony and integrity. So everybody sees the gist of what we're doing here and the sense of it, and how we just take these profound principles, energy principles, and put them into hands-on practice that's very easy and accessible. Questions? So let's help me get a table set up real quick.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino